Hey everyone, I'm Max Notis, and welcome back to the Recruitment Automation Podcast. RAP is a weekly podcast brought to you by Wade and Wendy, your on-demand AI recruitment platform. The Recruitment Automation Podcast focuses on the world's most innovative, efficient, and forward-thinking recruiting processes. My guest this week is none other than Cathy Neal of Bayer. So, Cathy, thank you so much for coming on board and joining us today.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
Likewise, we are happy to have you. So, Cathy, to kick things off, first, we'd love to hear a little bit about what you do for Bayer today, and really the journey that brought you there.
Oh, okay. Well, I have actually been with Bayer quite a while. I originally started out as a contractor and then moved into a permanent role. And I think that the thing that's really kept me there is I love the company. When I first got there, I told my husband, I'd been getting so many calls for permanent job offers and had sort of gone into that situation as a contractor for work-life balance. But I told my husband, I feel so fulfilled at this company. I'd rather be a contractor here than a permanent employee any place else in the world. And I've stayed ever since. In my current role, what I do is really focus on what I love. So I started out in talent sourcing and recruiting, and I pretty much stayed in that area. But in this particular case, in my most recent role, I focus on talent sourcing innovation, which is really exciting because the thing I love most about the whole recruiting spectrum is that hunt and finding the most innovative way to do it. So I focus on innovative processes, technology, as well as programs that can help bring us to the next level. I am a member of an HR innovation team that consists of 18 SMEs in different areas across HR. We all report straight into the head of HR innovation or vice president of HR innovation, Melissa Harper. So really glad to be part of such a dynamic team.
Absolutely. It sounds like it. I mean, you've been there for quite some time and you really have your roots there.
No, definitely. And I've been able to switch around and go into different areas. And that's something my company's really known for, is giving people new experiences and growing their roles, either within role or moving you into a different situation. And so that's one thing that's really been great about my experience with Bayer and why I felt like I haven't really had to go anyplace else to get the experience that I wanted.
Can I tell you sound like one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, I feel very lucky.
So let me ask you this, Cathy. There's so many companies right now that are trying to figure out how they can increase their organizational diversity and how they can create a more inclusive hiring process. If you were to give advice to them generally, where would they start?
Okay, I'd say it's a given that it always starts at the top. I've worked for companies where that support hasn't really been there. And yes, you can make diversity hires, but you can't move the needle without commitment. So I really think having leaders that support diversity like my company does, and that really have a commitment to making sure that we hire women, that are making sure that we hire people of color, people with disabilities, people from every spectrum of the life. That's really, really important because that's where it starts. I also think it's really important to think of diversity in everything that you do, in every plan that you make. So for instance, if you're going to purchase a tool, is there a diversity component? If there's not a diversity component, can you find a way to utilize that tool and technology to not just enable you with your sort of complete your overall goals, but to also push forward diversity? We've seen at my company, we're having people from different countries, having people that are from different walks of life, people that have different physical situations have all been able to really add to the network and the tapestry that has made our company really successful. And so I think it's really important to keep that in mind as you proceed forward so you can continue to get the benefits of diversity overall.
That's an excellent point that you're making right there. Especially, I like the point about making sure that even tools have a diversity component. Because the problem is, if you're utilizing a tool that was built for the world 3, 4, 10 years ago, and you're bringing something in that's going to perpetuate the same problems that we had. If it's
Definitely.
not built to shift to a different lens, then you're just continuing the same.
And I also think it's important to make it easier. So when you look at a tool, do they have integrated technology that can make that diversity recruiting piece easier? So for instance, can I text? And minorities, overwhelmingly have telephones a lot of times, even though they don't have computers. Do you have anything that's connecting people to AI? Because I sort of look at the old school AI as post and pray. Are you doing things to combine technology and drive innovation forward, which also drives diversity and inclusion?
Mm-hmm. That's a really, really good point that you're making there too. Yeah, these things have to really move forward with the times. Or again, it's AI off of an old list of names, which doesn't have
Right.
ones in place.
Or just matching skills based on keywords. That's really great. It's really important and it can help you. But do you have a community behind something to bring in talented people? Because I don't just want um, people that are matched by their resumes. I think if you're doing innovative things, if you have programming, if you have technology, if you have other mechanisms to energize and build a community and attract people to your technology, you're going to get the best people. So I think it's really important, like you said, to look at tools that are here, that are now, that are combining technology. So you're doing things to really bring in new people and to reach people in a different way, even if they're not new people. I don't consider myself a new person, but I definitely consider myself somebody that channels technology, pays attention to technology, and wants to be energized when I connect with technology in any way, shape, or form.
That almost even translates to bringing diversity into everything that you do. The traditional way of recruiting is pen and paper, phone call, keep a list of names, try to follow up with people, very manual. You have to be almost diverse in your thinking to do something new, to do something a little bit out of the box. So that's an excellent case that you're making there. But
Well, thank you. And I think that you probably, agree, having so much exposure to so many tools on
Mhm.
the market that you really have to be creative and get yourself out there in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So one other thing that you mentioned is that obviously and inherently it starts at the top. So what are some important things that leaders can do to bring, more of a culture of diversity or belonging into their organizations?
Mhm. Well, first and foremost, I think it includes having diverse leaders. So I think that, walking the walk and talking the talk is really important. I think also mentoring is really important. Sponsoring is really important because, when you are able to embed yourself in an organization in a way that's more out than outside of doing your job, that we tend to have success. Investing. So saying, this is something I want to make an investment around and that I'm committed to. And I think really figuring out, just as you make plans around business, make plans around diversity.
Mhm.
So from the very top, I think those are things that we can do. I think when I think of mid-level managers, I think of some of those same actions on a more direct and hands-on scale. So
Mhm.
making sure that your teams are putting plans in place to support diversity, pushing them to be creative around it and find the best people. I know when I think of one of my early experiences at a different company, really did not have that support from the top. And but I was very committed to making sure that everyone had opportunities. And a specific example is me finding engineers. I know people sort of said, we have, locations where minorities aren't going to go. We just don't think it would be attractive. And I always said, let's not make assumption because a career with a great company is a career. And I remember being so proud. And one of the things that has kept me in recruiting is because when I left that company, I had more individuals that they never thought would go places, living in places and moving into leadership than ever before. But part of that support, um, I think, was really working with my manager, my hands-on manager, to help her understand this is important to me. And I really do believe that we're not talking about settling for candidates. My husband's an African American engineer. I know tons, of engineers from all races. They're there, and we can't assume that humans don't all want the same thing. So we all want opportunity. We want paychecks to feed our family. And we all know that sometimes throughout a career that might be, traveling to see the world or do different things. And I say that to say, don't make assumptions because they're usually not true. And you can push yourself far just by thinking outside of the box and just simply saying, team, we're going to present all candidates and have diverse slates everywhere. And I can guarantee you, if you support your teams in that way, you will be surprised at the results. And I would say on an individual recruiting level, for me, it was very personal. I want to make my ancestors proud, and we all do. And you don't have to be from a diverse background to have that commitment, because we want to either break cycles, build new cycles, or support a new way of thinking as recruiters. And all of that comes into place when it's diversity. You can make that impact. I don't want anyone to ever feel like anyone is ever not a part of the circle, because we all are, and we can all make a difference. And I think we're really all committed to it.
That's an incredible statement that you made right there. I really even like, especially when you're saying, I wouldn't even want to offer that location to a candidate because I don't think they'd accept it. By doing that, you're limiting that candidate and you're limiting that community. It's a double-edged sword that you're imposing there. And I think, it doesn't matter what you're from, but if you're part of the team, you're part of the alliance, then you are.
Exactly. We are. I think what I always look at companies that I work for as families. We are all one family. So that means that everyone in the family can, sort of go, we all roll together. So if we're rolling together in the smallest town, then that's where we go. If we're rolling together in the biggest city, not to use such a casual term, but, we're all going there together. So there's no place anyone in a family can't contribute and that they can't go.
I love that. I mean, you wouldn't want to be if you're in a family and you see the parents are treating two of your siblings really well and two of them really poorly. It's not right. There's something off there. And we're all in the same house. We're all in the same family. Like, what's best for everybody is what's best for everyone.
Yeah, I truly believe that. And like I said, that's one of the things that has really kept me at the company that I am now, because I feel like they feel like we are all a family. Everyone can participate. And it's one thing that really enriches not just my career, but my life as a whole.
That's awesome. That's a really, really cool point. Now, going back to almost the talent acquisition side. So now, what about recruiters and sourcers and other TA professionals on the ground that want to make a difference? Where can they start?
I definitely think, especially now, let's think about COVID. For not everyone, but for some companies, things might be a little bit slow right now. So that is the perfect time for you to sit down and make a plan, make a strategy, and execute it as far as it comes to diversity hiring. And I know that we talked about larger plans like department plans, but you can also build your own personal strategy, because that's what you do as a recruiter every single day. So can you take time to make sure that you're out there sleuthing for candidates? Also, I think one thing that it is very intrinsic to diverse communities, whether they be women, whether they be people of color, whether they be people that are differently abled, or in any other community, is that we tend to know each other. So if you're talking to engineers and you have other jobs to fill for successful people, don't be afraid to say, hey, I know you're an accountant, but do you have any referrals for engineers? I never asked specifically, by color, race, sexual orientation, or anything else, but people tend to have communities that are diverse and that are also going to include representations of themselves. And so that is one way that I've really been able to grow my talent pools across the board when I was doing a lot of hands-on recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, become familiar with the different organizations that you can target. Take the time to have really deep conversations when you have time to do it, and pipeline. That is the way that I really, when I was doing hands-on recruiting, was able to really move the needle. And it was just making sure that I had a balanced strategy for everything, including diversity recruiting. So if you are a hands-on practitioner and you take the time to use that database, make sure that you're organized, and make sure that you're actively incorporating the tools that you have available. Some organizations are tool rich. There's lots of resources.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them aren't, but we can all make a difference. Also, train yourself. There's a lot of free online information about how to find diverse candidates and how to be more skilled technically as a whole. And I'm a strong believer that if you are skilled technically, if you train yourself, also take advantage of other opportunities that might come up, you'll energize yourself and you'll become more skilled at doing it. So I think as a hands-on practitioner, I know people get sick of saying or hearing, rather, I apologize, hearing, be organized, have a strategy, execute, but using whatever tools you have and actually doing that is gold. And I can guarantee you that if you do those things, you are definitely going to move the needle.
Well, that's a really, really, really good point. But now I want to even go on your end a little bit. So for you, what's something that you or your team has done recently that you think was really successful on the D&I front?
Okay. Well, when I think of some things that my team has done successfully on the D&I front, definitely includes outreach. So in my department, I don't have hands-on recruiters or sourcers. I'm more focused on the innovation piece, but I definitely know that our teams that are on the ground have been really effective at doing that and having diverse hiring slates. And for us in innovation, I think that it definitely includes identifying tools like technology that can help us get to that next level. We also have a really innovative D&I support system where we're always looking at, when you think of not just tools, but programs and processes, and seeing how those interlink. And really exciting. Also really connecting with our communities within the organization and partnering with them. So your affinity groups, programs, processes, connecting with them have all really been successful. And then also, again, just having that process in place. We do a lot of that, and we also do, the outreach to the organizations. All things that we all know about, but I think, again, when you have a strategy around it, really leads to success.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. I remember I worked for a company and they had a lot of employee outreach groups and resource groups. And they were really cool. They threw a lot of interactive parties and events and just learning seminars and things for the company. And I just remember they had the best swag of anything that ever happened within the company.
Doesn't everybody love swag?
Who doesn't? No, but it was a really cool, a little thing just to, hey, come learn more about us. And, it's so, hearing about people's personal lives and how it impacts a professional setting really gives you a lot of empathy to.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So, one thing you'd mentioned technology a couple of times, and obviously over here, we think a lot about technology and how it's impacting the hiring process. So when it comes to diversity and inclusion initiatives, Do you see any places where diversity can have, or I'm sorry, where technology can have an impact? And have you seen any specific tools or practices that are making a difference today? And if so, what opportunities do you really see for automation and technology in this new world, kind of hand in hand together?
Okay, so one specific example that I can give you is Hire Tool. So it goes back to what we're talking about, not just matching in AI, but what do you have behind it that drives their process? So I love some of the things that they're doing with virtual recruiting events, where they're helping staff them, they're doing outreach to them, and they are also building relationships with organizations
Hmm.
and then putting those people into the funnel. When you do that, you don't just have what I say the post and pray version of AI. You're finding energized communities that help you do that. Another thing that I'm really excited about, Power to Fly. I think that's something that is really exciting because, again, they're making the connection and building energized community behind the matching and the posting and all the things that we do. So I think anytime that you have that technology in place, and I'll emphasize some of these companies I'm not even working with right now, but those are things when I look at an innovation standpoint, since I'm looking out across the market, a couple of tools that I'm super, excited about. And I think with anything you do, especially nowadays, if you want top talent, you have to look at the integration and the pieces behind it.
Hmm. That's an excellent point. I mean, it's a lot of, you can have the best tool in the world, but if your data isn't working, then what's the tool really doing for you at the end of the day?
Exactly. And that's another thing. It's got to work.
Yeah.
You can have the best tools and the best concepts in the world. And I know when people talk, they always make it sound like your tool can do anything. I like Taxio from a diversity standpoint and Role Mapper, any of those types of tools that sort of optimize the attraction piece. That's really something I'm over the moon excited right now. And I think that people that are able to do that will definitely be people that can move that diversity piece over.
That's a great point you made. Now, I want to mention something a little bit more broadly on the innovation front. You mentioned that you're part of an innovation think tank as one of the global leaders in innovation in the HR process. So
Mm-hmm.
how does Bayer think about innovation in HR? And, especially both with regards to D&I and beyond that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that Bayer is really committed to finding the best processes, the best tools, the best practices. And I think just as we've been successful in all of our divisions by utilizing innovation, I think Bayer applies that same thought process to HR, which is amazing, right? So just as I think that they see having innovation in pharma and consumer and agriculture can really push that needle forward, I think they sort of view and support HR in the same way. So we have people that are representatives from diversity and inclusion, compensation, cross border workforce training, everything, to really make sure that we're applying those same principles to our people
Mm-hmm.
as well as our products.
Wow, you must get a lot of insight probably beyond listening to podcasts and things like that. You're really, really at the forefront. And I imagine a think tank's really cool because you can work out things with people. You can really bounce
Mm-hmm.
ideas.
And there's a lot of synergy. There's a lot of synergy.
Yeah. How do you even get involved in something like that?
So I think that the way that I got involved, I was at my company for a really long time. And when it applies to me, I've always been somebody that has really made an extra effort to strive on a personal level to implement innovation and strategy and process into my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of a lot of the outcomes I was able to achieve doing that,
Mm-hmm.
when they developed this department, it seemed like, a really good fit. So that was really exciting that I could take what I was passionate about and being able to execute that.
That's so. I'm even just personally curious about that. I think that's such a unique and a cool thing. It really
Mhm.
not like, oh, it proves that you care about what you talk, but it's just such an intrinsic and sincere accolade. I think that really is amazing that you're doing
Well, thank you.
it. Yeah. And then now we're really, believe it or not, we're up to our last question of the day. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, but we always ask, what are you excited about in recruiting right now? What trends are you seeing in talent acquisition that particularly catch your interest?
Okay. Well, one, the integration of tools.
Okay, cool.
So if you have something that sort of text, I am community virtual, when you can get all of that in one place and find a tool that makes your life easier,
Mhm.
that is where it's at.
Got
And then let's not forget diversity. So if you can combine aspects of that and make our life easier as recruiters and sourcers, because some of these tools, quite frankly, make our lives harder. But
Mhm.
when we can really do it and do it well and it really works, that's what gets me excited, especially when it relates to automation.
Awesome. Well, you're on the right podcast then. Awesome. All right. So, Cathy, that's all we had for you here today.
That's
Before,
awesome.
yeah, before we sign off, any final shout outs, any words to the audience to leave them with?
I would say if I'm going to give a shout out, give a shout out to all those sourcers on the ground, all those recruiters on the ground. Keep doing what you do because you make a difference. Would love to give a shout out to my vice president, Melissa Harper, just for the support and her commitment to diversity. A true leader in the space.
Hmm.
And a shout out to you for caring enough to talk about it. Because I think when we have these conversations and we keep it top of mind for people, we'll continue to make a difference.
That's an excellent way to leave it.
Well,
Awesome.
great.
Cathy, all right. Thank you so much for swinging by, and we'll see you at the conference on Thursday.
I'm so excited.
Awesome. All right. Well, take care, and I'll see you then.
Okay, I'll see you then.
All right. Bye bye.